Okay guys, so we're coming right along. Hope you liked the little montage. I'm sorry it was from the side, but you know, it was the best that I could do. I'm using the GoPro. I'll probably get better at camera angles and things like that. I need like 2 or 3 more tripods, I'm telling you. But it's coming along. I didn't show all the soldering and everything because that was kind of a pain, but what I did was just soldered on the bottom of this guy. I even put some Kapton tape on just in case if I run it into some wet grass or something, you know. But basically, it's not hard. On the bottom of this board, you know, these little patches are the positive and negatives, and you just solder positive to positive, negative to negative until you get all 4 of these ESCs soldered on. That's basically all I did. But you know, as you saw, you know how I did in the montage. I did the standoffs. I did a standoff here. And what I did was I did a screw, or I did a nut and a standoff, and I did all these in plastic standoffs. I've actually got a standoff kit. There's a plastic standoff, and then another plastic standoffs are screwed in to the top, and that's how I'm holding this power distribution board down. And then ultimately the nays, I've soldered all the pins. It comes with all these little headers and everything. Soldered all those pins on. Basically, these pins right here are going to be the connections for the ESCs. So the ESCs will plug in to these pins, as well as the let's see, where are we at? The ESCs will plug into to these pins, and then the whatever it is, the wiring harness here. This wiring harness is for your transmitter. I'm using, that's if you're not using the PPM or CPPM or whatever it's called. Basically, they'll do, they basically serialize the data is what they do, and this thing can read that. It only uses, I think, the first 3 pins, so most people don't solder this header on. They'll put, you know, just the first 3 on here is all you need. You need power and ground is the first 2 pins. Hopefully you can see that. Power going from this side, power and ground, and then the signal is the next one. So if you have a CPPM transmitter, you can just solder those 3 pins and you're good, okay? But for this instance, I'm doing this cheap way, which I'm using the Fly Sky. What is this? This is a Fly Sky FST6, which is a very inexpensive transmitter compared to the more expensive. I mean, they can get up to like $200 US, so that's pretty expensive for me. So I'm wanting this whole thing to be only around, you know, 200 to 250 bucks is all I'm trying to do with this whole thing, and make that the max amount of money I want to spend. So I've got a fairly simple, cheaper transmitter and receiver. So the receiver is going to have all the channels. It can't do the CPPM, which is totally fine. That's why we have this harness. So this harness basically plugs on, and as you can see, there's one cable that's all 3 put together. So this is the power. Is how you power your transmitter. Okay. So that one goes. So this row is the top row. Okay. So this plugs on just like this. Well, if I can do it, I'm looking through the viewfinder here. Plugs onto that, and you will have to solder that header on. It just solders on the top and the bottom. It straddles the board, okay? And then this will, eventually I will screw this down to the inside of this, but how this works is this power guy goes to the channel 1. So the first channel is the one that this is going to be on. And if you look at it, the white wire, well, I don't know if you can see it on the board. You might not be able to see it. But the white wire goes to channel 1. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's 8 channels that are on this thing. I'm only going to use the 6 because that's all I need. I just need the, let's see. I just need pitch forward, pitch back, you know, pitch left, right. And then I just need roll and pitch. And then I need the throttle up, throttle down, and and I can't remember what other you need, but 6 is fine. You can use 6 with these. So that's what I'm going to do is I will take this, and the first one will go here, and it even says on the transmitter which way to plug it in. So this will plug into the first one, and that will bring power and ground that will power this up. So thereafter, you don't have power and ground. You don't need the power and ground. You just need the signal lines for each one. And so you'll just one by one plug them all into the transmitter until you fill it all the way up. And so it even has a battery indicator. That's what this BAT is. If you have battery monitoring, which I don't know, I'd have to look. I don't know if I'm pretty sure the Naze does have, because it's over here, it has like a buzzer signal here, but I'll have to see if I can hook that into this. But it has a battery monitoring system on it, so it'll tell you if the battery's getting low, and this FlySky will telemeter back that battery status to your transmitter, and so your transmitter will actually alarm and tell you that the battery's getting low and that you need to ground it so you don't crash. So in any case, pretty cool stuff. In any case, so that's what that does. So we'll end up mounting that right here once you get everything hooked up. These all these guys, what I've been reading, I don't know if I need all 3 of these to be plugging in, but basically they'll plug in one by one down through here. There's the guide for this is actually a very good guide that's on this, but I'll show it to you, and ultimately I'll probably draw a schematic of this so you guys can see a good schematic, so you can see how this all hooks up and goes together. So I'm going to go ahead and probably shorten some wires. I have a kit and a crimper, a set of crimpers, set of ratchet crimpers. And so what I'm going to do is I've got the contacts, if you can see that. So what I'll probably do is I will shorten these wires up, because these things are hugely long, because these ESCs are universal, so you can get the really big drones, and that way you have enough wire so you can hook them up. So I'm going to shorten that up. I'll cut that all down and shorten that all up and hook it all up. So now the motors, how I was doing the motors, basically, here, let's get this out of here. Unplug that. Basically, the motors are color-coded. They have, there's black and silver is what we have. And what it designates is whether it's a counterclockwise or a clockwise motor. Now, technically, they're all the motors are the same. They all do the same thing. But what it is it's the thread. The ones that have the black threaded deal have a left-hand thread. And so those are clockwise. So basically, as the motor is turning clockwise, it's trying to tighten the screw. Okay, see what I mean? So that way, what it's for is so that if it's spinning the opposite direction, it would basically it would start loosening the screw with all the vibration and that circular motion, and pretty soon you'd lose a propeller. So what they do is these ones are considered, for all intents and purposes, the clockwise ones, because as they turn clockwise, this is actually a left-handed thread. If I turn this to the right, I'm actually loosening this bolt. It actually gets tighter the other way. That way, when it's tight and it's holding still and this guy is turning clockwise, this thing is actually getting tighter. And so see now it's actually getting tight. So that's what that's for, so that they get tighter as they're spinning. Same thing with this one. With this having a right-hand thread, you want this motor to spin counterclockwise, and so when it spins counterclockwise, it tightens this up. So how you actually set up your motors is you pick which side's going to be the front, which I'm saying this is the front. This is going to be the front of my guy. Okay, so the front's going to be here. So that means you've got motor number 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's how it goes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you're going to have clockwise, counterclockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that. Okay, because that's how this thing controls itself, is with some spin clockwise, and that's why you have to look out for the blades. And the blades actually have indicators on them. It tells you which blade is a clockwise blade and which blade is a counterclockwise blade, because as you can see them, they're pitched differently. And that's so that, one can be spinning one way and still cut into the air, and the other one spins the other way and still cuts into the air. And then that's how you get the balance with this whole thing, is you have some spinning one way, some spinning the other way, and it creates kind of a gyroscopic type thing. I don't know. I'm not an aviation engineer, so, you know, an aerospace engineer, so that's beyond me. But in any case, I know that it does work. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I will probably go ahead and shorten these up. Like I said, I'm going to read about them because I've seen people cut off the power and ground off of these and leave just the signal line, which is the yellow one. Except for one of them, because this is how the NAS, the flight controller, gets its power, is when you plug one of these in, it actually powers up this board. But what I'm wondering is if it does it hurt anything to just leave them all together? Because I mean, I kind of don't want to be snipping off wires, because then I'd have to make sure they don't touch or cross or something like that, and you'd have some snipped off wire just kind of hanging, dangling, and I don't know, it looks weird. Another thing I'm going to have to deal with is these guys, these motor driver things, these speed controllers. I have to deal with the fact that there is no polarity on these. And so basically what you have to do is you hook these up, you just hook these up pretty much, and you just got to check the rotation. You got to make sure you hook up, you know, one for one, you know, anyway. I don't know why they don't put these in what order they're firing in or whatever, because all it is it's just magnets, and there's just a firing order, and you can feel it as you're turning this. It's like a stepper motor. Basically, you can feel it when you're under a magnet. Basically, in this little stator that's on the outside, there's permanent magnets, and then there's electromagnets in there, and there's 3 windings, you know, 3 poles worth essentially that you're working with, and it's just how it fires them, you know, how it turns them on will either make it spin one way or spin the other, and how you can reverse it. If this is spinning the wrong way, like this is a clockwise one, if it spins counterclockwise, then all you do is you just flip 2 of these wires. So you're going to hook all these up, all 3 of these up, and all you do is you just swap. You just crisscross 2 of them. It's just like a 3-phase motor. If you've ever seen 3-phase motors, you just swap 2 of the phases and it'll spin the other direction. So that's essentially what's going on with this guy, except these are DC, so it kind of has nothing to do with 3-phase. I was just saying they're similar. But you hook up all 3 of these, and then you just swap any 2 to make it go the other direction. Well, since you kind of don't know, this isn't labeled, I don't want to solder these. I will probably take and get some quick connects, you know, those little things that you snap together and unsnap, and I'll probably put this together with quick connects instead of soldering them, because I don't want to, when I go through, because you have to get this all put together, power it all up. The NAS actually connects USB to your computer. It has probably an FTDI chip or something like that on it that does the USB to serial conversion. But you connect to your computer, and they have software that sets this thing up. Well, as you're setting it up and you turn on your motors, if you've got a motor backwards, you're going to have to completely desolder and rework, and it's just going to be, it would be a nightmare. So it's the only disappointing thing. I wish that these were actually labeled, or if there is a way that you could label it. There might not be a way that you could label it. I have no idea how these are designed. So, and they're just in their little shrink wrap package, and that's where they're at. So, you know, I don't know. Any case, that's what we're going to do with those ESCs. So I got to get some parts, because I don't have any of those quick connects, believe it or not. So I want the good, like, you know, automotive grade ones that snap really good, so that way they can't vibrate loose. You know, if I used, you know, like contacts, like this or something, they probably could vibrate loose. So I don't think I'm gonna trust that. So I'm gonna get maybe some automotive grade ones and put them together. And so guys, that's about all I have to do before we actually power it up for the first time. The battery's over here. I figured I'd zip tie the battery to the top. I kind of don't want it to be lopsided. I was gonna put the battery back here or something, but I got to thinking, well, if I want to do the first person view stuff, I'm going to have to put the camera up here, and I don't know, maybe the transmitter would fit underneath it, or well, the transmitter would probably be back here or something for that. And so there's really no place to put the battery, and I got a pretty good size one, so I just belt strapped it to the top, more or less. I mean, that's all I did, nothing fancy. Just strapped it to the top, put that out like that, soldered my connector on so you can plug it in. Yeah, Bob's your uncle. So I think that's going to work. And I do like this a lot better, because instead of the weight being way out here where it might want it to tip, it's more or less kind of centered in the middle. So I'm trying to keep all the heavy stuff right in the center of this thing, so that way it's maybe hopefully a little more stable with all the weight in the middle, instead of being like on one end where it's kind of trying to be lopsided. So any case, it's still got some more work to do, but I'll keep going, and hopefully I can get maybe this little. I've got my little woo-doo. It's my little guy that'll grab around stuff. Maybe I can hook up something and get maybe a better shot of this, so you guys can see this being built a little bit better. So in any case, all right, guys, I'm gonna take a break for a second and shift gears, get some tools and whatnot, and I'll be back. Okay, guys, so all right, so now I'm gonna go ahead. I got a bunch of these little connectors. I don't know if you've ever seen these before, but basically they're a little, let's see if I can get it up close to the camera where you can see it. Where are we at? Okay, so you got a plug and a little end, and these plug together like this. And they push in, they're very rigid. And so that's good. We don't want this coming apart. So that's what these are. Ooh, see? They're real tough. So that's a good thing, though. We want them to be a real good friction fit, so that way it doesn't come apart. So what I'm going to do is we are going to go ahead and I'm going to put these on one by one. What I'm going to do is these wires are really short. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and strip those on out. So using a pair of good old wire strippers here, I'm going to make these a little bit longer so that they will so they'll go. Of course, they're tinned, so it makes it kind of difficult to strip, but I want to make them a little bit longer so that way when they go in here, they make good contact. And then what we'll do is we'll use a crimp tool, which I have. Let's see, it's over here. One of these things, and we'll crimp all these down. So let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and do that now. Let's go ahead and do this. So that's what we're going to get into. So I'll just go ahead and I'll just keep filming, and we'll maybe speed this up, do like a montage or something. Okay, now that we got that all done, I've got all this shrink wrap to shrink, so let's go over to the bench and we'll shrink wrap all the shrink wrap. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and shrink wrap this up. I like to use my hot air rework for shrink wrapping, but you can use a heat gun, and if you really need to, you can use a lighter. A lighter works really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, watching myself make sure the camera's all right. I'm going to turn this guy on, okay, and let him start getting hot. What this is if you don't know what this is, it's got a little heater in it, and it's got air pump in it, so it blows hot air. That's what it does. And this works really well for shrink wrapping. So we're going to go ahead and shrink wrap all of these.